Excellent. So that should be a good thing to start the stream with, I think. Maybe I need to slouch a little bit more. Be a little bit more lazy. Let's check it over there. Alright, good deal. So, Kerbal Space Program. Did it work? It looks like it worked. I think we're good. So let me just check to make sure that it appears in the stream over there. And then we will begin, only a couple minutes later than anticipated. Outstanding. So let's see who here. Adel. Seriously, Adel. This whole thing. Cybertech's already here. Adel's here. Chainsaw Face, welcome back. K9 Officer and Hag, also here. Laxcore, I saw you. Link Strife. Wow, this is everybody that was here yesterday. So thanks for joining me for Kerbal Space Academy Interplanetary session. Today we're going to be trying to go through and plan an interplanetary trip, build a ship for it, actually launch the ship, get it into orbit, plan the interplanetary transfer, execute the burn to go interplanetary. What's next? Oh yeah, time warp. Then we're going to do the capture at the planet and, I don't know, do something. So, that is what's on the agenda for tonight's Kerbal Space Academy. Facecam, I know, right? Like I was saying earlier, I had a setup stream going where I was just kind of screwing around to make sure everything worked. And you're not involved with IT for 15 years without accumulating a box of IT junk that includes at least 3 defunct Logitech webcams. There's no excuse not to dig that box out of the garage and plug in the webcam, especially when you're doing this sort of stuff. So, this is my first deal. If the stream isn't right, if there's something wrong with the cam, I've been playing around with the lighting, not my core competency, but let me know if there's something that I can improve with the stream. I've never talked to the camera before, so I just imagine I need to like put somebody's picture next to the camera so that I can pretend I'm talking to someone, because this way it's like, maybe I should make the camera glow red. I can pretend I'm talking to Hal. So anyways, if there's anything I can do to improve this, let me know. But without further ado, let's see. I didn't quite get completely set up. Go away, Mark 1 cockpit. We need this. Configure visual buttons. I got a new thing. Image viewer. Let's see how it works. Show hide image. Sweet. Alright, that's cool. I like that. And what I need to do, I need to show hide image list. How cool is that? It doesn't quite fit in there. Isn't that cool though? Like, I can display the images straight here in my capture. Shh, don't talk about the ship you just saw. I'm going to do some streams on that later in my career mode. I've been working on that for a while, but I totally got this image viewer thing set up so that right here in the KSP window, you can see me down there. Wait, down there? I don't know which corner you're in. Anyways, whatever. And I can actually bring up images. Right now I've just got this one set up, but I figured this would be really cool as kind of a visual aid so that we can use this subway map, because you can see my mouse too, which is awesome. Wait, did I point the right way? There we go. Alright, yeah, I think the second way, that way, was the right way. Anyways, the subway map, let me go ahead and toss a link for what I'm going to be using over here. I've got a couple links I'll be using. Let me grab them right quick. One of them is the subway map. You can get it just by going to Google and typing KSP subway map and clicking on the top link. But I will go ahead and put a direct I'll put a direct link to the Imager host file here so you can get it for yourself if you want it. So here it is over here in the channel. That's what I'm going to be using and showing on the screen. It's basically the delta V map that tells us how much delta V we need to get from point A to point B in the Kerbal system. So you can see on the map, if you started at the very bottom, which I can barely fit on there, I need to make the resolution on this a little bit smaller. Wait, can I resize the window? Negatory. I cannot? Okay, that's fine. Wow. Down there at the very bottom, you start off at Kerbal. We all know that it takes roughly 4,500 in stock KSC, P, E, whatever, to get up to low Kerbal orbit. And then once you're in low Kerbal orbit, you're more than halfway to anywhere, as the saying goes. and we can use this to calculate our transitions to other worlds. So I'm going to go over that in a second. Let me get one more link here, because I do have one more thing that I'm going to be using, and that is Alex Moon's KSP calculator. And I can get to that just by typing Alex Moon KSP. Apparently the coolest thing he's done for KSP is the launch window planner. And let me paste the link for that over here as well. As we're going through, if people show up and they ask about links to either of these things, feel free to repeat the links for them. You can copy these links right now, open it up in your own, excellent, bookmarked it yesterday, open it up in your own web browser or whatever, follow along, you can play with it and see kind of the things that I'm doing while I'm doing it. And if people ask what tool it is we're using for the Peanut Gallery, it's perfectly fine to post these links out there for anybody who asks or needs it. So I do appreciate the help, just so that I can continue running my mouth while y'all help out the stream. So, I do believe that we were going to plan a mission to Duna. I think that's what we were talking about yesterday. And we may even make Duna and Ike. I do not know. We will see. So, I am totally doing this live. I'm playing it by ear. I didn't do a dry run of this. I've done interplanetary transfers myself, but I've never actually streamed one before. So I may totally muck this up. I don't know. No promises. I mean, it's not like you paid to register for the course, did you? If you did, I wasn't aware of it. So anyways, Kerbal Space Academy, going to another planet. We're going to be going to Duna. Let's begin planning the mission. That's the first step before we even start building the ship. So you can see here on the Delta V map, that first link that I put in, we all know Kerbin to low Kerbin orbit, 4,500 meters per second. That's just a given. We really don't have to worry about that. That is going to be our lifter, and it's not really, no matter where you go, you're going to have to plan for your ship to get off the surface of Kerbin, right? So we really start at low Kerbin orbit, and we go from there. On the Delta V map here, it tells us that to go from low Kerbin orbit to escape the Kerbin system is about 950 meters per second at Delta V. You can see that because right here, you can't see my mouse, can't you? Yeah, you can see my mouse. Awesome. Right here, from low Kerbin orbit on the map up to Kerbin intercept, which is the same as leaving Kerbin's sphere of influence, is 950. That's the number we have here. So just to kick us out of the Kerbin system is going to cost us 950 no matter what. That's what it takes to escape Kerbin's gravity. So, trusty dusty notepad over here. I totally looked for something where I could actually write on the screen. I came up with a couple options, but I didn't have time to set them up before the stream here. So I'm going to be writing it down on a piece of paper over here. Maybe in the future I'll be able to actually write them on the screen. But to get out of the Kerbin system, 950 is our number. Kerbin escape. From there we're going to be going to Duna. So once we reach the Kerbin intercept station here, it's kind of like 5 points in Atlanta, Grand Central Station in New York. In New York? Is that where Grand Central Station is? I don't know, I've been there a couple times. To get from Kerbin Intercept up to Duna is an additional 110 Delta V. That seems pretty low to me. But this is for an optimal transfer. So apparently, at some point, this thing is claiming that we can get to Duna in 41 days using an additional 110 Delta V. That would make the entire burn from low Kerbin orbit 950 plus 110, so 1060. I'm not going to say that that's not possible. It seems really low, but we will get to using Alex Moon's calculator in a minute, and we'll see if there is a time and date that we can do a transfer that will only cost us that much for a Duna intercept. So I'm going to write that down. 110 for the intercept. To go from a Duna intercept to low Duna orbit, 370. So we'll write that down. That basically means just getting the encounter with Duna, where you're going flying by it, to actually go into a somewhat circular orbit around Duna is going to cost you another 370. So if we want to not just go flying by Duna, but we actually want to go into orbit around Duna, we need another 370 to create that orbit, I guess. Then to get on down to the surface, you can see this is 1380. So remember, to go down to the surface, assuming you're a really good pilot, and come back up, you're going to double this number here. Also remember that Duna has an atmosphere specifically, so you can lower this number a little bit for your inbound segment because you can use the atmosphere to slow you down. However, you're also going to have to fight against the atmosphere on the way out. So this number could be, I'm actually not sure if the number includes it on the way up. Anyways, let's just double 1380. I'm going to call it 1500, and we're going to say 3000 Delta V for a trip down to Duna and back up. like that. So I've written down some numbers here, and everything to get us out to the Duna system, 950 plus 110 plus 370, call that 1060 plus 370, 1360 plus 70, 1450. That's not right. What's 6 plus 7? 13. 1430. So 1430 to get out to Duna, and then 3,000 for a trip down and back up. So those are kind of the beginnings of planning our mission here. Using the Delta V map, we think we're going to need about 1430 to get to Duna. We're going to need about 1430 to get back home, although we can aerobrake on the way home, so we're not going to need quite that much. So it's almost like double that number. It's 1500, double it to 3000. You need 3000 Delta V to go to Duna and back, and 3000 Delta V to go down to the surface of Duna and back up from the surface of Duna, for a total of 6,000 Delta V. We're going to build a ship that has a lot more Delta V than that, because if you're just getting used to us, you're not going to have perfect burns, you're not going to have perfect orbital maneuvers. You may need to have some extra Delta V for landing. Luckily, 6,000 Delta V is not very much Delta V, as it turns out, and we can definitely build a ship that has more than that. On top of our... Yeah, you can definitely aerobrake on Duna. Yeah, I think I tossed that in there. In fact, where is it at? Yeah, you can actually see it on the map I have up here, because it says inbound aerobraking possible, indicated by this little arrow. So here on Duna, you can see that... Oops, that's not Duna. This is Duna. In order to get into the low Duna orbit, you can do some aerobraking, and to get down to the surface of Duna, you can do some aerobraking, indicated by this little arrow here and this little arrow here. Not a lot of bodies in the Kerbal system allow you to aerobrake. So I know you got Duna, you're definitely going to have Eve as a possibility there, and the only other ones are Jewel, so there's our Jewel, and Lathe. There's our Lathe and our Lathe landing. For everything else, those are the only bodies with atmosphere in the system, except for Kerbal, of course, because we breathe the air there or whatever. So we've said we need about 3,000 Delta V to get to Duna and back. We need about 3,000 Delta V to land on the surface and come back up. And we're going to design a ship to do that. So how do I do this thing? What is that? Oh, look, that closes it. Interesting. All right, that's cool. Let me check out with the chat. Looks like there are a couple questions over there. Can you air brake? Hey, Des. In a free moment, can you briefly explain how to... K9 Officer. I can do that really quickly. The ambient light mod requires Blizzy's toolbar. It should be packaged with Blizzy's toolbar. To get to it, you're going to need to go to the toolbar like I just did over here and do configure visible buttons. When you do configure visible buttons, I'm in the VAB so it doesn't appear here, but from the drop down configure visible buttons, you should have a button here that says ambient light mod or whatever. You click the checkbox next to it, that should make it appear, then you click on that to make it come. That should help you out there. I think that you probably have it installed correctly. You just need to make that button visible in Blizzy's toolbar. It's probably all you need to do. Have a look at it. Let me know if you can't get it working. So, a ship that goes. I think we want to have... What? 2 Kerbals? We're not going to build a huge ship to do this. Let's send 2 Kerbals out there. 1 to remain in orbit. 1 to go down to the planet and come back up. For this mission, I'm not going to do a rover. I want to kind of keep it focused on the actual transfer sort of deal, how to plan the transfer, how to get there, how to execute it. So I'm not going to deal with the rover. We'll do another Kerbal Space Academy episode on rovers and the like. So what can we do? Let's build an interplanetary ship. This T-Can carries 2 things. Ugly. This cupola weighs a lot. As you can see, the mass of the cupola is 4.5. A lot of people don't use the cupola because of the mass. It holds a single Kerbal, weighs 4.5. We were talking about this yesterday. The reason for that is the glass. As it turns out, you don't run down to Home Depot and get a little bit of really thin glass like you would use in your windows outside. This glass has to be space-proof, so it weighs a lot. Somebody had mentioned that the original lunar lander was supposed to be a lot more glass, and they had to scale it down simply because of the weight of the glass. I think we quipped that we needed some transparent aluminum, but we don't have that. We just have the cupola. However, we're going to Duna for the first time, and we will carry this thing out there and back because that's cool. We will also, for accommodation purposes, tack on a hitchhiker. Because I like the hitchhiker. It's roomy, it's got snack storage. What's not to love for our trip out to Duna? So this will give us some nice picturesque views of Duna. This will give us a place to chill out and eat snacks while we're going to Duna. I think that's good. Let's go ahead and also put some, dang it, battery power. And by the way, am I slouching too much? Am I like slowly drifting off the camera to the bottom? Like totally put it over there in the chat if I start to screw that stuff up. Anyways, I just tossed a big old battery pack on there. Can't have too much battery pack. What else do we need? We need fuel. Where you at, fuel? And we're going to do the fuel, like that. We'll see how that turns out. I'm gonna kind of design this. Thanks, Hag. I'm going to kind of design this like we designed the science ship, kind of that Star Trek looking deal with the 2 engine nacelles sticking off the side. We're going to check the delta V and we're going to see if we have enough delta V to do efficient burns. So, let's see here. Let's go ahead and tack our buddy Kerbal engineer on there. Since we're going all the way out there, we're going to put this cool tape recorder version on it. I like it a lot. Kerbal engineer, stay over there, please. And what else do we need? We were going to build some engine nacelles like we did yesterday. So let's toss 2 girder segments on the side like that. What weighs more, a girder segment? 0.125? Or this? Wow, 0.02. I like it. Small hard point instead of girder segment. We'll build our nacelles based on this. Although yesterday we did that for our little rescue craft sort of deal. And I'm going to grab a couple of these and put them on here. This is just kind of the design we've been going with for these ships, and I think we're going to go ahead and stick with it. And let us see if we can't toss a couple nukes on here. That sticks way off, doesn't it? So let's play with it. Let's move it up. That doesn't look too bad. So you can see right now we've got 499 delta V. $1 million. Let's see here. We need to run some fuel lines, and let's check what our actual delta V is. So I'm going to run a fuel line from nope, not like that. Here. To here. Let's see, does that look good? And I did 2x symmetry, right? Yeah, that's fine. So that's 2,085 delta V. That's not a lot. Let's see here. But that's atmospheric. That's why it's so low. Let's turn off atmospheric. And all of a sudden, we've got a craft that has 7,584 delta V. Our entire mission requirement to get out to Duna and back was 3,000 delta V, so I think we'll be able to do it with 7,584. However, we haven't put the lander on here yet. The lander's going to require some fuel as well. I feel like I need to sit up straighter or something. Anyways, let's see here. 7,500 delta V. That's a lot of delta V. Maybe, I mean, either one of these fuel tanks could be smaller. What's the mass of our craft right now? 38. We're going to revisit the delta V after we have the lander on there. So we're going to build a lander, we're going to put it on here carrier style, and go from there. So let's build the carrier portion. And I've got a way I like to do that. Should we do it differently today? Maybe we'll do it differently today. Maybe. Just maybe. Do you stand up correctly? No, you tuck in. Let us grab... Where's the little structural point? There we go. The failed clampetron here, if you read the lore. I'm going to put it way down here. Like that. I'm not sure if I'm going to be in love with this, but let's put it together and see. I don't know. We're going to work with this because, again, we want to get out to Duna, but we also want our ship to look cool. I'm not sure how I feel about this so far. We will continue. I'm going to put a Clampatron on top as well. It's backwards. There we go. So let's see here. What does... Remember we've built the little lander before. Not in this save, apparently. Apparently we're going to build the lander again. What I'm kind of going with is I'm kind of making a carrier sort of thing where the lander will be on one side and then other things, other satellites and stuff we need to carry will be on the other side. Let's go design a Duna lander, and then we will come back and install it on the ship. So let's save this, and we will call this the TBD Duna mission module. Save. Let's hop over and make that lander right quick. And by the way, am I going too fast, going too slow, doing okay? Don't know. Let me know over there in the chat if you have any questions, if I've glazed over something or whatever. So, a Duna lander. We like the lander can. It's nice and lightweight. We're just going to send one guy down to the surface. So we'll go with the lander design we've used a couple times before. Remember, our requirement for the delta V on this lander is going to be 3,000, and we're going to have to make sure that the thrust to weight is good enough for Duna. So those are our real design requirements. Let's see what we can do along those lines. We'll also put some science things on there. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense not to just land on Duna, but to also do some things while you're on Duna. So we'll put that there. Let's put a nice battery pack in there. Not that one, but that one. Let's put a battery pack in here, because we need battery packs as well. Plus it gives us a little bit more room. I'm going to put these here. Not sure how much I'm in love with that. Maybe I'm in love with that a little bit more. Huh. Not bad. Let's put some engines on it. How much do these things weigh? 0.04. Good news is they're massless. Don't tell anyone. Did I line them up correctly? Yeah. Okay. And then what else can we do? We're just going to make this thing look kind of cool. Nobody ever uses these, so let's use them. Excellent. Remember our favorite little OP engines, the 48.7S. I don't know. Any comments from the peanut gallery, feel free to share. Thanks. If I am going a little bit fast, that's how I talk a lot of the time, but if I glaze over something too quickly, definitely tell me. And we're going to go over all the same stuff again. I'll bring the delta V plot up again. We're going to use Alex Moon's calculator, so we are going to revisit that stuff. We just went through it quickly to try and figure out our rough delta V estimates for what we needed to do. So, we've got some science, we've got some fuel. Let's slap an engineer on here and see what we're doing. Remember, our design requirement for landing on Duna was 3,000 to go down and come back up. So let's use the engineer. I put the engineer part on there. I opened up the window. We can actually go over and click on Duna, and we can say atmosphere. So we can see that this craft here on Duna, because I've got Duna selected there, in atmosphere, because it's a lander. Good deal. Good to hear, K-9 officer. Because we're going to Duna, it's a lander, so we check atmosphere. We click Duna. We look at this, and we see that our thrust to weight is 3.64, and our delta V is 4,162. That's pretty good delta V. We're not done designing the craft, though, and we're going to put some emergency delta V on here like we do. Emergency fuel. We always put on emergency fuel. Oh, this little part. There's a reason nobody uses it. Because instead, I'm going to put these, our little toroidal. Anyways, nuclear. We're going to put those on there. And then we're going to put our little engines on the bottom of them. And that sounds pretty cool. I mean, if the engines are destroyed, we're SOL anyways. so we might as well put the engines down there. I was thinking putting those on the bottom may not be the safest thing, but I think we'll be okay. So, what else? Let us set these fuel tanks to off mode. That means that they're emergency fuel. That takes our fuel down a little bit. We are going to try and we'll tweak the fuel at the end. We need a docking port down here. And we'll go with this Mark 1 Clampatron. Does this one, what is that? 10 meters per second. Wow. And 10 meters per second. So the shielded one doesn't really give us any better impact resistance since it's on the bottom of our ship. So we'll just go with a lighter, yeah, that's half the mass. We'll go with a lighter Clampatron for this. Hey Danthus, what's going on? This is Kerbal Space Academy for Interplanetary missions. So we're walking through how to use the Subway Delta V map to plan the mission, how to design the craft to do it. We're going to use Alex Moon's calculator to calculate when we should be going on the mission. We're going to execute the burn, we're going to execute the capture, we're going to time warp some, then we're going to go land on the surface of Duna. Maybe. I hope. I'm totally doing this live, so we don't know. What else? Landing gear. We need some landing gear on our lander. I do know yesterday we went through using the struts as landing gear, or sorry, using the that looks good. But wow, we can do that. Yesterday we talked about using the Gubei as landing gear, and I won't be doing that today. I'm going to be putting regular landing gear on here. So I like that. That looks like a good lander. It has a really wide wheelbase, so it has a really wide lander base? I don't know. I liked, instead of having kind of a skinny lander, you know, something that looks kind of like this. Let me grab a thing right quick. Instead of having this number, which is honestly not a bad lander design. Whoa, those are big. See, right. Like, imagine your lander was just like this, right? It's kind of tall and skinny. You can change it by doing this, right? But you're still kind of very tall and skinny. In a design like this, it's pretty difficult to land on a slope a lot of the times. I like to have my landers, if they're not a completely wide base, with at least one dimension that's a really wide base, because then if I'm coming down on a slope or if I need to land on a slope, I can orient this lander along the slope so it's got this really wide base, kind of, I can't illustrate it with my hands, kind of along the slope, and that makes it a lot less likely to tip over on that slope. Also, we try to keep that center of mass low. That's why I turn these tanks sideways, so we can keep that center of mass as low as we can, as opposed to this, where the center of mass, once you put the pod on top, it'll be a little bit taller. So that's why we're going with a wide wheelbase lander like this. Yes, we are going to name the ship. I turned the fuel off on this because that's our emergency reserve fuel. Remember, I always like to put a tank on here that I call the emergency reserve fuel. We turn off only work off this Delta V. If we get into a situation where we're SOL, we can engage our emergency tanks and use those to complete whatever maneuver we almost just boffed. So that's the emergency tanks that I've turned off. I didn't turn off the main fuel tanks here. The cool thing is, when I disable these tanks, it actually changes the Delta V in Engineer. So see, I've got them enabled right now, and when I disable them, it turns it down, and it says, alright, without that fuel, you've got this. The thing you're going to figure out is if you design towards that Delta V, where you're carrying these tanks around, you'll usually have that extra fuel left over once you try to do your maneuver. If you run out of your main fuel, you can say, wait, I've got emergency reserves. Turn on those tanks, finish what you were trying to do. I really advise putting that on there like that. What have I mucked up? The challenge of RCS is what I have mucked up, because when you have landing gear in this configuration, you're short on places to install RCS thrusters. Let's see what we can do, because we are going to be taking this guy back to rendezvous with our mothership, I guess. So let's do that. Where can I put RCS? Clearly not there. First, let's look at our center of mass, as you do. It's about in the middle of those tanks. Can I put it like this? These are massless, so it doesn't really matter how much they weigh. And they cost $4.50 each. So they're... I'm not sure if I love it. Plus we're missing 1 degree of motion. 2 degrees, whatever. Back and forth, because we don't have anything to thrust in these directions. And we'll check RCS build data to see if it's balanced as well. What can we do? Maybe we should just go with... There's not really a way to put the landing gear somewhere else. So let's do the same thing we did before. This is a little bit less efficient, I guess you could say, because I'm using more parts than I really need to, but for the purpose of this lander, we're going to go with it. So remember the trick that we learned the other day. We'll put those down. I love this trick, by the way. And we're going to put these on top of it. And now we've got all the degrees of motion we need. We've got RCS that blows left and right, back and forth, up and down. So this has all the degrees of motion. Let's check it with, yes, linear RCS ports. Thank you, Soul Wager. Welcome, by the way. We're well on our way to building a Duna lander and a ship to carry it there. So I do have you to thank for a lot of what we're doing here. So let's see, RCS build aid. Here's RCS build aid. Link to the mod is down in the channel description. This thing is freaking indispensable. You can see right now we're going to... Maybe what we need to do is this. Let's take this battery off because we're trying to keep that center of mass low, right? And let's put this battery down here and see how that affects that. And I like that. I think we're good to go with that. However, that kind of mucked us up quite a bit. Let's do it in this direction first. So what I did is I pressed the K key. The other thing I was going to get was one of those things that shows what keys you're pressing on the stream, so that whenever I do things like that, you can see what key I pressed. It's also when I'm doing those direct orbital rendezvous and that sort of stuff, it may help to see. I mean, I can only say so much. I'm pressing J, I'm pressing J. Seems kind of dumb to do that constantly. So let me take this off, let me take this off, and let's move these things so we don't get any unintended rotation. Let's see. Move it up a little bit, move this one down a little bit. There we go. So now when we go back and forth, we're good to go. Before I do that, let's add the rest of our science and stuff like that. And then once we've got power generation, we've got this thing all ready to go, then we'll worry about balancing it. Should have thought about that in advance. We've already got engineer on there. Sensor array computing nose cone. Me. Let's put a thermometer on there. Actually, we'll do a full science suite. So there's that. There's this. Here's one of these. There is an atmosphere on Duna, so we'll take a Pressomat barometer. The only thing we're not taking is a goo. That'll be fine. Yes. I like it. Okay. And then we need power generation. We've got plenty of... Seriously, Valdez? Really? That's a good way to block hatches. For anybody who may have put 2 Kerbal engineers on their ship yesterday and blocked a hatch, if you're over there in the peanut gallery. Let's see here. There's that. 1x symmetry, 1x symmetry, 1x symmetry. We need a communications array. I know this lander is looking awfully familiar. This is kind of like my patented lander design. There we go. There's our antenna. Probe cores. We're not going to worry about a probe core on here, but we need power generation. So, power generation. Same as always, we're just going with a standard design. We've got plenty of battery storage, so we're good there. We've got our dorsal side taken care of. Remember, I always like to know which way is up on my ship. Basically, the way that's facing with the flag behind you on the VAB. This way's up. Duna has an atmosphere. We could use shoots on Duna, couldn't we? Yes, Soul Wager. RCS Balancer does take into distinction the physics disabled parts. I'm pretty sure. We can actually test it right quick. Let's see. An Octo Strut is a physics disabled part, but it doesn't weigh anything. One of these motors I think weighs 0.9. Yeah, that's okay. That's about 0.1 ton. Let's see if it takes it into account. I was going to say yes, but I don't know. So let's balance this out. There we go. There we go. Alright, we're balanced. Let's toss this guy on here in 8x symmetry. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes, it does look like RCS Balancer does take into account the physics disabled parts. Hey, Cubid, thanks for the follow. Welcome to Kerbal Space Academy. It does, because as I move these around, I'm not getting the red circle. And with anything else, let me get a physics enabled part, such as, oh, come on. Here, is this a physics? Yeah, there you go. These are not physics disabled, and see as I just drag it, it changes the red circle. And as I drag the physics disabled part, it does not. So to answer your question, yes, RCS Build Aid does take into account the physics significance flag. Good to know, good question. So, red circle was gone. Let me talk about that. The red circle is provided by RCS Build Aid here. That is a mod. The link to the mod is down in the description. It's an older mod. It hasn't been updated in a while, but it continues to work like a trooper. What I'm doing is I'm turning on. It's grayed out, so it's off right now. It's turned on, so it's green, so it's on right now, and it gives us this little window. I'm turning that on and off. And what RCS Build Aid does is it allows us to balance this craft. I do sessions on RCS Build Aid specifically with Kerbal Space Academy, but as you can see, if I add parts that change the center of mass, see how that yellow ball is going up and down? RCS Build Aid tells us that the craft is not going to be balanced. And you can only make it worse. Look, if I add 8x symmetry on these, that's a lot of unintended rotation. What that means is that, can I put them there? No, let me put them there. So close. Let's just do 2 then. There we go. So we're going to take that off, but right now, notice where our RCS ports are. These little guys pushing the blue force out the side. That's where they would be enacting a force. If you zoom in, you can see that the center of mass is a little bit above where this force would be applied. In order for your rocket to fly straight, that force needs to be applied directly on the center of mass, right? And so what RCS Build Aid is saying is, oh, dude, time out a second. You're applying force down here. That's south. Actually, we can make this a lot better. Check that out. That makes it a lot more obvious, doesn't it? Here's where the RCS will be applying the force. Here's where your center of mass is, because I stacked that big tank on top there. RCS Build Aid is saying, whoa, dude, time out. You're applying force over here. Your center of mass is up here, so you're getting a lever effect. You're going to be rotating in this direction because the force is being applied south of the center of mass here. That means every time you puff that RCS in that direction, your craft is going to wobble. It's going to rotate. That's a problem. We don't want crafts to wobble and rotate because it makes it difficult to dock them. So that's where the red circle's coming from. Hopefully I continue to... yeah, Johnny Boy Adventures, I do have things. Lights, thank you, I'll do that. I'm continuing to explain RCS Build Aid. Hey, Gruma, I'm going to move on, but I do sessions specifically on RCS Build Aid. So if you need more information on it, come back for one of the Kerbal Space Academy craft balancing sessions. We'll take that off. The important thing here now is that our center of mass is aligned with our RCS center of thrust when we're translating in the I or J, the back or forth direction, and see we're good to go. We're going to do the same thing with the left and right direction. We know we can get pretty close just by putting this directly on top of the ports, like that. And now when I translate left and right, you can see that left and right, my translation is straight in either direction. If I were to move one of these, oops, this force is not applying against the center of mass. I move it up. When I get it aligned correctly, the red circle goes away and this craft is good to go. Oh man, I like it. This craft will be very easy to come back and dock. Also, I think of very much importance here is the fact that these fuel tanks are very close to the center of mass. So check this out. As we use fuel out of these tanks, we don't significantly change our center of mass. Watch that yellow ball. Oops, watch that yellow ball. See how it barely moves up and down? When we're almost completely empty... Oh, that's actually a pretty good rotation when we're almost completely empty. I don't really like that. We can fix it though. We can make it better by doing this. Moving these fuel tanks up a little bit. Excellent. Now let's see as we change this. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So if you missed what I just did there, I changed where the fuel tanks applied against our center of mass. I had them a little bit lower, which means when they were empty, our craft was going to rotate versus when they were full. But now that I've aligned them with the center of mass, the craft shouldn't go back and forth. Basically what I just did is I made the craft without the fuel tanks, say I take the fuel tanks off, equal to the craft with the fuel tanks from a center of mass perspective. I put the fuel tanks directly on the center of mass, so as those things drain, it won't greatly change our center of mass. Again, we'll go over that more in a craft balancing session. There's definitely like a Kerbal Space Academy craft balancing thing that I like to do on occasion. Let's see here. What else am I missing? Lights, someone said. Let's put some landing lights on this sucker. Thank you, RCS Build Aid, for your services. Are those landing gear pretty much the stream? Yeah, they're fine. So let's put a landing light on. I like 2 landing lights. One for the spotlight. That makes it really easy for us to see the ground coming up from a great distance. And then one for kind of more of a work area light, which I like to install up here above my work area. Like that. So that way I can kind of see what's going on at night. Oops, I applied 2 spotlights. That's not what we want. I just want 1. Excellent. And here is... looking for a ladder. Come on now. There we go. Is this one long enough? We shall see. No, that one's not going to be long enough. We're going to need a longer one. So we'll put that guy right. That must be on the landing gear. And extend it. Look at that! That's about perfect. I like it. We're going to need to check something right quick. So let's go ahead and put this as Duna Lander. If anybody has a name, what about SAS? Good question. The pod that we're using, the Mark 1 lander can, comes with a little bit of SAS. A little bit of rotation control. It's got 3 pitch, yaw, and roll torque with it already. So for a craft this size, we probably won't need additional additional SAS and any other reaction wheels. We can just use this. Plus we have that 15 units of monopropellant, which is good. Monopropellant, 15 units. That's an excellent point. We can do it with 15 units of monopropellant. Because we're going to use our main engines to rendezvous and that 15 units of monopropellant to actually dock with the craft. So the 15 units of monopropellant already stored in here, I think we can go with that. If I can't dock with 15 units of monopropellant on this craft, I'm doing something wrong. You may want to include a little bit more monopropellant on yours. You could do something like toss a couple of these puppies on here if you wanted to do that. But notice, that greatly changes our delta V. We go from 3,500 about all the way down to only 3,000. Even if we carry half a load, 3,250, that's not terrible. For your purposes, let's go ahead and put those things on there. Because maybe not everybody's is dockerific. I've done a whole lot of dockings in my time. So let's go ahead and put those pods on there. That may have changed our center of mass significantly. Man, not too bad. I'm not worried about that. I think that's fine. Let's see here. We'll go ahead and just leave those there, and we'll say that their nominal load is 20 About half a tank. We've done that a couple times in the past. Anything else? Is there anything else that I haven't put on this craft from the peanut gallery? Ah, an atmosphere. Duna has an atmosphere. So, that means we can use a parachute. Let's have a look. That's a drogue chute. 0.3 on the mass. How does that affect our delta V carrying that back and forth? Wow, that's going to cost us a lot of delta V. So the real question is, does having that chute on Duna, is it worth it? Is that chute going to provide 200 meters per second worth of deceleration? What is that? This one is a lot smaller. That's a little teeny tiny chute. Radial. How much is it? 0.15? Is that kind of the middle of our two? Let's see here. If I put a radial attached chute on the top here, that takes us right down to 3,000. Let's see. I think that I'm going to go ahead and go with that. That chute is the compromise between the larger XL chute and the smaller chute. However, this chute alone is not going to land us on Duna. Duna's atmosphere is very thin, and you need a lot of chutes to land on Duna, but this will help us some. Let's take it and see how it works. Anything else? You'd say it's really not worth it? I probably agree with you, Soul Wager. Let's go ahead and leave it on there, and maybe we can do some tests, one where we use the chute and one where we don't use the chute, and see if we have any significant difference between the two. Let me turn that on. 3379. I wish I had a little bit more delta V. I wish I was sitting at 3,500. Remember we said our design requirement was 3,000. That already had a little bit extra built in. We've got that extra amount in here. I really wish that sitting here we were already sitting at 3,500. And we still have plenty of thrust to weight. Remember, the thrust to weight we have set for Duna in atmosphere, and this thrust to weight has to be over 1.0 or we'll never take off Duna. So we have plenty of extra mass that we could carry, and if we make that mass fuel, we'll be good. What can we do? What can we do? We could do this. Let's have a look. Oops. Let's take that off. Let's take these guys off, and let's see if we can't use these instead. I'm not loving this, I'll tell you what. And plus they clip significantly, which is against my personal rules. I'm not in love with this idea so far, not gonna lie. Yeah, alright, let's not do that. It's a silly idea. What if we just put these back where we had them? I'm pressing Control Z there to get rid of these. Nope. Nope. There we go. What if we just add... I think this is going to look dumb, but let's check it out. Yes, okay. Yeah, it makes perfect sense that you can't put that tank over there. There we go. We'd have to change our gear, that's for sure. It's interesting that it's saying that that doesn't significantly change our thrust to weight. Isn't that interesting? How did that not change our delta V? What did I do wrong? I would expect that to give us a lot more delta V, and it has not. It's almost like it's not using those. Because look, the thrust to weight's really low now. Oh, there we go. Duna atmosphere. Oh, there we go. Okay, for some reason Kerbal Engineer got set back. So look at that. I don't like it. I don't like it. We have room to carry extra fuel, but I don't like that. I think we're going to do it this way. What did that add? That added 45, I think. Yeah, 45. In a toroidal. And that thing adds... So let's do this. Take our RCFs. Hey, that's awesome. Save as subassembly is what I should do there. Let's take those off. Let's see what it looks like if we put these on the side like this. Call this the Donut Lander or something. That's not right. That's not what we wanted to do at all. Toroidal. Thank you. It's a toroidal. Oh, brother. Y'all are gonna think... Oh, what? Seriously? Thanks, Kerbal Space Program. Apparently, you can't... Hit. Keyboard. Apparently, you can't attach these things. You can't surface attach things to the toroidal fuel tanks. Solutions from the peanut gallery. Anyway, anyone. I know we could save it. We could do it this way. We do something that surface mounts. Do we think this looks super dumb? Not surface mounts. We could use something that. I don't know. Any other suggestions from the stream over there? Let me know if you have a cool way for me to solve this. The problem is that I cannot surface attach anything to the toroidal fuel tanks, and I want to go with this design just because. So see how I can surface attach this here, but I can't surface attach this there. I do not understand why they do things that way. But looking cool is a major concern of NASA. It really is. If only I could get a job with NASA, I would be ready to look so good. Let's get ready to look so good. The ugly one. What's her face? Name the reference, somebody. I don't think that that's terrible. I think that we can go with this. Since looking cool is certainly a major concern of both NASA and Kerbal Space Academy. I mean, okay. I don't like these. I think they need to be up, and I think they need to be at a bit of an angle. So we'll put them on like Mickey Mouse Club ears, doggy ears, whatever. Is that good? Looks pretty flat, right? Yeah, okay. Put the RCS on the toroidal. Those things don't radial attach, do they? No, they don't. They're surface attach only. They don't radial attach. Sorry, axial attach. So we couldn't use the axial attachment point in the middle of that. I think that's okay. You know, over here magic occurs where the RCS magically flows from there through these solid segments into these, but whatever. Let's give old RCS Build Aid one more look. We're getting a little unintended rotation there. It's no bueno, mister. And we're going to... Yeah, let's have a look. Can we fix it like this? No, we'd have to put that too high. That looks dumb. We would not be allowed in NASA with the amount of dumbness that looks. Is that good? Yeah, but now we need a little bit more mass down low. Lignova! Teen Girl Squad! Possums! Can we fix it by moving these around, maybe? Put them down here instead, underneath the gear. Maybe. Nope, because the gear will fold against it. That's not going to save us. Putting it up there makes it worse. Oh, wait. No, because the gear will get it there. And putting it down there doesn't move it nearly far enough down. Something like that. Also blocks our light. But that makes it a lot better, honestly. Let's see. I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. But because we had to... Maybe... Let's have a look. Could we fix it by the way we put this exactly? Let's see here. Yes, look at that. We can just move it up a little bit. And if we move the other one up, it'll be solved. Alright. There we go. And I'm not worried about that. And as we move... Nope, it doesn't like that. That's pretty close, although when our tanks are empty... So let's do that. Let's say that our tanks are down here. And then we'll do this, and then we're going to stop Lander Design 101 and get back to the interplanetary transfer part of this stream. My bad. How's that? That'll work. And then when we fill them up... Excellent. Now what? What is this? Really? Oh, I bet you... Huh. I'm not sure why this keeps switching back to that mode. 3223 plus our emergency fuel. 35. I'll take it. Let's ship it. We've designed enough lander here. I'm going to do one more thing. Fill them. Fill what? What didn't I fill? Those are good. The tanks are good. Yeah. Thanks, Haroon. Bob? If that's how you say that. Thanks for the reminder there. I appreciate it. We're going to check one more thing. We don't want this hatch to be blocked. I'm a little concerned about where that is. So let's go ahead and click that, and we'll just run a test on the launch pad right quick. While this scene loads, I'm going to drink some delicious Dr. Pepper. Who's that, Dimitri Martin? Damn you! I thought you were my friend! Straw! Alright, let's see here. Wow, we're a little sideways. Look, what's going on here? Why does it think that we're heavier on one side than the other? Let's just make sure Jeb can get out. Yes, Jeb can get out. Can Jeb crawl down the ladder? Yes, Jeb can crawl down the ladder. Can Jeb get back in? Yes. Alright, good enough. What would that mean? That our side legs aren't touching or something? We'll see if we can't tweak those landing gear inside too. Ladder's out. Hey, thanks. Like Noah, yes. By delicious Dr. Pepper. 10, 2, and 4 is the only freaking slogan I can remember, but that's clearly not their... Yeah, look at that. Those side landing gear are a lot higher than the other landing gear. RCS build date, I love you, but I'm going to turn you off. Does that look pretty close? Looks like it needs to go up a little bit. Hey, we always do this. Oh, really? I can't get low enough to see if all the feet touch at the same point. The side legs are up a little bit now, so let's move these up just a hair. I hate that. Gosh, that gets on my nerves so much. When you click apart, it changes where it is exactly. I think that looks good. Ladder. Yes, ladder is out. Hey, okay, good deal. Thanks. I think somebody said that up there earlier, too. Excellent. We want to... It keeps switching back. Wow. I'm not sure why it keeps switching off. It's like something causes that to change. And that was atmosphere, right? Yeah. Alright. Let's fix the ladder. I didn't put on 2 ladders, did I? No. Retract ladder. Hey. Here's another bug. I don't know why this happens, but you can't, you apparently can't re-retract the ladder after you put it out. If I put it on again, reset it. Alright, now can I put it in? Oh, KSP. Sure, I'm glad we're getting new spaceplane parts. I just, spaceplanes are cool. Let me get a new one and see if I can't do it. Now, can you retract? Okay. Of course, now since I moved it, I have to test it again. If we get all the way to Duna and Jeb can't get out of the freaking lander, no one to blame but myself. Okay. We're not listing anymore. We're apparently sinking into the launch pad. But remember, we have full fuel tanks. That's fine. EVA. Excellent. At least you can extend the ladder when you're in EVA. I guess there's an external control pad you can press or something. And let's make sure we can get down the ladder. Excellent. Apparently the ladder is very stable. It implants itself in the ground by at least a half meter. 1 Kerbal height. Let's go ahead and go back up, get back in. Let's ship this lander. I think we're good to go. So we'll save it. We'll put it as a subassembly so we can attach it to our carrier that we've already built. Duna lander, save. What's the root part? This. That's super annoying. What can we do? We can do this right quick. I'm going to save it as a subassembly. Call it the Duna Donut Lander. Save. Then I'm going to go... No, I guess I'm already on new. I'm going to set... I wish I had select root. Select root is an excellent solution here. But I'm going to do a Clampatron docking port. Flip it upside down. Go to subassemblies. Grab my Duna Donut Lander. Excellent. Slap it on the bottom like that. And then rebuild the thing in reverse order with a new root node. A new root part. Yes, I am fully aware that this would be completely solved if I had select root, but this is also an excellent way to solve it. So now you can see, originally the lander can was our root node. If you grab the lander can, the entire thing would move. Now this is our root node. If you grab that docking port, the entire thing will move. That's important because now when I click save and I come over here and replace my Duna Donut Lander, save, overwrite, that means when I grab it as a subassembly, back on the, where is it at? TBD Duna Mission Module. Let's have a look. Here's my Duna Mission Module. When I go to subassemblies and I grab the Donut Lander, I can install it like that. And that is exactly what we were looking for. However, we have a couple problems. Apparently the gear are still deployed. We can fix that pretty easily. And in addition, the way I put it on there right now, that's a problem. That's definitely a problem, because you can't get into the hatch. So let's take it off, rotate it around, put it back down. We're scraping up against the side of the building. We don't like that. So what can we do? We're gonna need to do this at some point. So before I forget, let's put a SAS module on here. And then we're going to need a little bit more room over here, which we can accomplish like this. Not like that. Not like that either. Come on, now grab the right part. Is that the right part? Nope. Is that the right part? Got it. Alright, good. I was just grabbing the part there. You go away. How long are these? Modular girder segments. Because that would save us that part as well. Is that going to do us? Yeah, we can put it on that girder segment and not touch the side of the carrier. Alright, that's good. So let's remove these parts. What did you miss? I'm happy to do it again, Hag, but tell me what you missed. I don't know the context of what you're asking me. Is that good? Nope. Like that. And we'll do something to make that look cooler. Oh, but I already have that there. Let's see here. Nope. Alright, but we don't need two landers. And I will explain. There we go. That landing gear is not really touching. I count it. I'll count it. That's fine. Alright. That looks ugly. I really like that. Let's make it look prettier. That looks cool. But I would like it to be balanced. So let's do this. Take the lander off. Grab this. 2x symmetry. Let me check this here. Flip. Oh, the flip part with the root part. Yeah, there you go. That is how you flip the part. Thanks, Soul Wager, for the help. All I did was select the lander, and I pressed ASDWQE to move it around. It's the same things you use to change the heading on your ship whenever you're normally flying it. So what I'm going to do is put one lander here. And nothing is touching. And that looks kind of cool. And we have a node that we could attach something to if we need to. What else? There's a problem with this ship. I'm sure that everyone can point out what the problem is. Got a big old lander on this side. Got nothing over here. When we drive this ship, it's going to flip in that direction. Like this. On my view. I don't know what it is on your view. We don't want that. We don't want a ship that's going to go in circles like that. So, we need to balance things. And I have a couple tricks for doing that. Step 1. We need to have a look at the lander. So let's save our mission module. And I'm going to go back to the Duna lander. It's so useful to have your crafts in different files like this because you can look at the statistics for them. You can check how much delta V that part specifically has, and you can also check what the weight is, the balance like we did with RCS, all that sort of stuff. And you can play around with it when it's in a separate thing. You can move it between places using the subassemblies like we did. So let me hop back over to the Duna lander and check a couple things. Kerbal Engineer, talk to me about, I don't think this matters. Fully fueled, the mass of our lander is 7171. So I'm going to write that down. 7171. Excellent. And if I empty these tanks, the mass of our lander is 3171. 3171. I'm going to put that, that's kind of dry-esque, dry-inspired. It's not completely dry because of the toroidals, but that's the majority of the lander mass right there. So I'm going to write down 7171 wet and 3171 dry, being a difference of 4,000 kilograms in fuel weight. That's important, and here's why. I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to go back to the other guy, the Duna mission module. We need to balance this craft, right? We know that if we remove all the fuel from these tanks, we have a whole lot less. Let me make sure I got both. Yes. We have a whole lot mass on this side, right? If I just leave the lander over here, that mass is going to be 7171. If I drain these tanks, the mass is going to be 3171. So what can we do? Well, why don't we just do this? And what did we do? We take the fuel from here and we put it over here. We don't need this though. So what I've done, it's still not balanced, don't get me wrong, but we've taken the fuel out of these tanks and we've moved it to this side of the craft to try and help balance out the lander. This is where RCS Build Aid comes in handy again. So I'm going to turn on RCS Build Aid, and instead of RCS mode, I'm going to change it to engine mode. And I am going to disable the thrust in these engines. This is important. So I turned on RCS Build Aid by clicking there. I clicked on engine, which has us calculate for engines instead of calculating for RCS. And I disabled the thrust in these engines so RCS Build Aid would not try to calculate them. Notice when I had them enabled, RCS Build Aid is using the thrust out of our nukes and the thrust out of these engines, right? That means we're going to go sideways. We're only going to be driving with the nukes. So I'm going to just trick RCS Build Aid by setting the thrust limiter to 0. And you can see right now, the center of mass is off to the right, and we're going to rotate around the right because the center of mass is not with the center of thrust. We have to balance that somehow, and that's because there was 4 tons of fuel over here. Let's see here. There we go. If we put the fuel like that, we're very much balanced. So you may have questions about how I can build these asymmetrical craft. This stuff is over here. What do I put over there? How do I balance it out? RCS Build Aid is the freaking answer to that question. We can do this better though. This tank is just structural. It's doing absolutely nothing there. So let's play around with this and see what we can do. I like having that docking port there. That allows us to refit things in the future. So let me go ahead and grab another docking port. And let me put something structural in the middle. How can we make this look cool? Will this work? That doesn't look too bad. I think that looks kind of cool. We'll strut it in, of course. And let's see how that affects our balance. Balance is not bad already. If we put half a tank of fuel, nope. What is one past it? Either way, we get no unintended rotation. We get a little bit of skewing, and I'm okay with that. Now the trick is, we don't have completely the amount of fuel over here that we're going to need to fill up these tanks. So that would mean that we would have to be pulling from the main ship supply in order to tank this thing up to go do its landing. It's best if you can put all the fuel on one side and all the fuel on the other side. Another thing is going to be that once the lander goes down and comes back up, we need to maintain this balance, right? So it may make sense to leave that amount of fuel over in these tanks. In fact, we're just going to turn these tanks off and draw fuel from the main supply. We'll have to see if we have enough to do that. For everybody that's just joining us, welcome to Kerbal Space Academy. We're sending a ship to Duno with a lander, and we're going through excruciating detail, perhaps, on getting that done. So what I've done is I've built the main module, the main ship that's going to do the transfer. I've built the lander and put it on here. It doesn't touch. No touching. I'm not touching. And I've built a little bit of fuel reserve over here to balance that out. We were using RCS build aid to make sure that our ship wasn't going to wildly rotate while we're flying. And this is good enough for us. What else can we do? We need to strut this stuff in before we forget. So let me take care of that. We should be able to do this number, I think. Is that enough struts? Yeah, look at that. That symmetrically strutted it. Now that would make these two things kind of wobble side to side, so I think what I want to do is do it this way. And we'll make one go from underneath the little battery thing to there. And underneath the other little battery thing, hello, yes. Underneath the other little battery thing to there. And that's going to keep that thing from wobbling. We've got 3 points of contact. It's like a 3-point stance when you're playing football. You got one there, and one there. It's a nice stable sort of stance. Why did you not connect? Because you're dumb. Seriously? Let's see if we can... Yeah, okay. It must be. Is it because those power things aren't even? Let's try to put it over a little bit more. I want both sides to connect. I cannot tell you why it's connecting on one side but not on the other. Maybe I need to put it lower, like that. Nope, that didn't fix it either. Sometimes, Kerbal Space Program, sometimes. I'm just going to do it separately like this. Ugly. What is that? That's on the inside. There we go. There we go. Now that stuff is strutted in good enough. It's a little bit disappointing. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's what it was. Look how these aren't the same. Let me try that. I would like to do it the right way. You 2x symmetry, go there, and then we're going to put it a lot further down, matching that one. Like that. Did that work? Close enough. Close enough. Let's see here. Ah! Hagruma, what I did was I rebuilt the ship. You have to start a new ship and select that docking port as your root node, and then rebuild the ship around the docking port as the root node. You can also get the select root mod, which allows you to select that thing as a different thing. The other thing that you can do is you can bring that ship over here in a subassembly. Say I hadn't fixed it. I could bring this over here in a subassembly and stack it down at some other unintended place like this. I could do that, and then I could rebuild it upside down like this. That's not right. But anyways, you get the point. Just get it over to here, and then you can always take it apart one piece at a time and rebuild it over here if you're having trouble getting the root node thing to work. That is another trick to build your ship over there. So let me get rid of this extra lander I don't need. And get rid of that, and the docking port. And get rid of that. Okay, so we have a ship. That Delta V looks dismal, but that's because it's atmospheric on Kerbal. Here we are non-atmospheric. What is our Delta V? 6,000. That's not too bad. And remember, we did our calculations over here, and when we looked at the image viewer and we looked at our subway map, we said that it was about 3,000 Delta V. So this is 950 plus 110 plus 370 to get into low Duna orbit. Plus we're going to be using some aerobraking, so it shouldn't even cost us that much. But anyways, that was about 1,300 that way. We doubled, or we gave us a buffer up to 1,500. Then we doubled that to get to 3,000, and that's what it's going to take us to get to Duna and back. And this ship has 5,810. Now, I promised that we would go over some of the things about the pros and cons of the nuclear engines, right? The biggest con to the nuclear engine is their thrust versus rate, because the nuclear engine weighs 2.25 tons, and it puts out 60 thrust. That's not great compared to the LV909 that weighs a half ton and puts out 50. So you get almost the same thrust, but you lose almost 2 tons worth of weight. Let's play around here. Let's put some different engines on this craft and see how it affects our Delta V. So I've got this set up for vacuum Delta V. I don't have atmospheric turned on. And that means we're going to be using, for every engine, its vacuum ISP, 390, not 300. And for the nukes, it would be 800 instead of 220. So we're using that vacuum ISP. 800 is very efficient. Let's see how our Delta V changes if we remove these nukes and we use LV909s instead. So 0.27 thrust to weight, 5,800 Delta V. Try the 909s. A whole lot less Delta V and a little bit less thrust to weight. So in this case, the nukes both give us more thrust to weight and more Delta V. The thing is, the mass of the entire craft is a lot more than the mass of a nuclear engine. If we built a lot smaller craft, where the 2.25 tons, actually the 4.5 tons for 2 nukes, were a large percentage of the craft's mass, these numbers would change a little bit more. But you can see for this specific thing, the 909s are not the answer because we get both less Delta V and less thrust to weight. Let's continue playing. What's another engine that has really good thrust to weight? Hey, Soul Map, thanks a lot. Or Soul Wager, thanks a lot for posting those links over. Let's try some other engines. We know the Aerospikes. The Aerospikes are heavier than the other one, but they have a pretty good 390 vacuum ISP. That's the same as the LV909. Let's put Aerospikes on here because they have buku thrust and see how that affects us. So look at that. That sends us all the way up to 0.8. Make sure it's the atmosphere. 0.8 thrust to weight, but only 3,000 Delta V. In order to do this, we would have to add more fuel to the craft, like this, to get more Delta V. But the more fuel we add, the more our thrust to weight goes down. So, could we accomplish the mission using this craft with, what is this, almost 3 or 4 times the Delta V? Yes, we could accomplish the mission the same way using this. We just add more fuel because we get more thrust from those Aerospikes. You're selecting your engines, using Kerbal Engineer makes it really interesting. You can look at those stats in real time. You can take one part off, you can take this off, you can put this on. This is going to be dismal, 0.18 on the thrust to weight, but 4,000 Delta V. We're going to get ridiculous Delta V from this. This is 7,300 Delta V, but only 0.21 thrust to weight. And those Aerospikes, 3,700 Delta V with 0.26 thrust to weight. I'm going to go ahead and stick with the nukes on this. But it's really cool to have Kerbal Engineer there simply because you can, simply because you can play around with the different engines. You can take an engine, I mean, geez, what would a LVT-45? 2,800 with the almost 1.0 thrust to weight, right? So it's really cool to have Kerbal Engineer because you can play around with the parts like that and see how they affect your ship statistics. I'm not going to put that fuel on there. I'm not going to do this. There's a couple other things that are, let's call them advanced topics. This Delta V is going to go up when we use fuel to fuel our lander, right? When we use some of this fuel for that trip down and back, the delta V is going to go up because the overall mass of the craft is going to be less when we're coming home. Right now, we're counting this fuel as payload, complete payload. See how I have the engine, or the tanks turned off? When we come home, we're not going to be carrying that fuel that we used to go down and back, so we'll have even more delta V once we suck that fuel out of the craft. I also feel like 0.27, it's an annoying thrust to weight. It's going to make your burns take a little bit longer, and longer burns are less accurate burns. We're going to resolve that because we're going to have a kicker stage here, a Kerbal sphere of influence kicker stage. We're going to have a stage that's going to help us with a much higher thrust to weight get out of orbit. And once we get cruising out of Kerbal sphere of influence, that's when we're going to be using this craft. More stuff. I've missed a couple things. I'm not going to use that fuel on the side here. The fuel that I've put on the side, this is the operational fuel for the lander. So remember, we took the fuel out of these lander tanks and we put it over in these tanks to help with our balance, right? We needed some extra mass over here, we needed less mass over here. That's why I took it out of there and put it over here. The other thing that we could do if we wanted to carry more fuel, we'll keep it simple. I won't do that. We already have Buku Delta V. Let's see here. Any other questions? I'm gonna take a pause for a second and check with the chat. See if you have any questions that I've come up to date. I'll do a chat roll call too, just to thank everybody for hanging out. But if you have any questions, I don't bite. I'm here to answer questions as I do this stuff. Feel free to post it in the chat, and I will begin answering questions for the next couple minutes before we design the extra-orbital kicker stage and the launch rocket, the lifter. Also, be thinking, I forgot a couple things on the main part of the craft here. If you see something that I forgot, post it in the chat. Help me out. I do forget things a lot of the time, even though we've built lots of ships. Making fun of somebody who's gone all the way to Duna and forgot the, I don't know, batteries or generator or something, lander fuel. You're on the hook too, because you're supposed to look at the craft and tell me what I forgot. So don't make fun of me. Let me get caught up with the chat here. Let's see here. Do I intend to bring back the lander? If so, I'll still need some ballast. Yes, I do. That's an excellent point. There's a couple different things that we could do. We could just leave the lander there. Leave it in orbit around Duna. In fact, I like that idea. That's actually a really good idea because we could multi-purpose the lander. We could also make it kind of a satellite that stays in orbit around Duna. That is a freaking excellent idea. So let's take care of that right quick. Thanks for putting that over there. In order to do that, we're just going to need a probe core. So let's take the chute off. Let's put us a little probe core there, which will only barely affect the delta V of that lander. That probe core only weighs 0.04, so we're not going to worry about how that affects the balance or anything else. And then we'll put our... looks a little funny, but whatever. It's a... oh, come on now. It's apparently a probe core with a hat. Wow, how did I screw that up? There it was. So sensitive. Ah, no! Jeez, concentrate. Very carefully. Ah! Probe core with a hat. I never noticed that those are two different angles on there. Huh. Apparently there's like a this side is up sort of deal. I don't see I don't see it listed anywhere. There's no this side up on there. Let's see here. Let me get some other questions. We got the Delta V maps. Thanks. Not gonna use the fuel on the side. I answered that one. Half the tanks. Yeah, Soul Wager. Thanks for helping out, man. That's exactly the answer, Hag. Is we just put however much fuel in here that we needed to balance off the craft. Another thing I was gonna say I could do. The difference here, 180 minus 108, that gives us 72. We could come over to these tanks and put 72 in them, and then we could come to these tanks and fill them all the way up. And because in the scales of gravity, we put the same amount of fuel on both sides, we're going to be able to carry more fuel for the mission. So now you can see I added 72 over here. Remember, symmetry was on, so it did it to both tanks. I added 72 over here, and I added 72 over here. That just means we have to remember the balance a little bit differently. We need to keep 72 in this tanks when these tanks are full, or have these tanks empty and have these be 108. We really need to, let me write that down. It's either 72 and full or empty, dry, M-E-M-P-T, what, empty? And 108. And that'll keep this craft balanced while we're flying, which is an important thing. Let's have a look here. Hey, Rudy Bob, are you going to be able to detach the spare tanks that are shredded in there when you leave the lander? Yes, in fact, that was something that I had just thought about. Because we've got docking ports here on both sides and docking ports here, when we detach the lander, we could also detach these tanks and have them attached to the lander. Now, will it be a little bit difficult because there's no control on here? Yes. How can we solve that? A probe core is good. So now we have a little bit of control authority over that, but we've only got one docking port. So we could totally do this. I like this idea. That's actually that's an excellent point. Let's fix it right quick. We're going to take that, and we are going to have to rebalance some things, but I really like Haroon's suggestions over there. Let's have a look. Where is... There we go. Let's put a probe core in the middle. Back from the days when you had that decoupling bug, when you couldn't decouple things unless it had a probe core on it. And let's toss another docking port on here. Like that. And then let's put our tanks in the middle. Hey, come on now. Yeah, actually that looks pretty cool. And what have we just done? Oh, why is that a little bit off? Let's fix it. Here, let's I think what we need to do, here's what we need to do. The lander is a lot bigger, so let's strut this stuff in like this. 2x symmetry. Strut you from there to there. And did we catch the lander too? Well, I have no clue what's going on here. What did I just screw up? Something. Maybe that's not going to work. Tis a silly idea. Where's the struts? Alright, let's strut the lander this way. You can always just strut this independently. You don't have to use the symmetry like I'm doing here. I'm just trying to make life a little bit easier. So if we go down to the level of the fuel tanks, and we build our struts based on that. Did we get both? Yes, we got both. Excellent. And let's repeat on the other side. So go down to the level of the tanks, strut it over like this, and did we get the tank? Yeah, there we go. Alright, cool. Bob. Alright, Bob, just call you Bob. Good deal. So check it out. Your idea was freaking awesome, because what we did was we made this a little bit more symmetrical. I put a probe core on there, which is good, but here's what we're going to be able to do. When we're doing space operations and we're getting ready to leave the lander in orbit to function as kind of a satellite till next time we come back to Duna, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the lander, and we're going to fly the lander over the top of the station, come back down here and dock it with this. Ta-da! And everything fits there. We're not scrubbing up against everything. Good. And then we're going to undock this part, and we're going to leave that floating in Duna's atmosphere, floating in Duna's orbit, and then we're going to fly this puppy back home. So that is an excellent idea. We'll take that extra tank off. We'll take this. Our return ship is going to be nice and symmetrical without having to worry about how the balance is and stuff like that. And we're going to leave this guy floating in Duna's orbit. That is actually a freaking brilliant idea. Thank you for posting it over in the chat. So let me go ahead and rebuild this. We're going to put this here. We're going to take this guy, fly him over the top again. Wait, I should make RCS noises. And then dock it there. Excellent. Everything has restrutted. Alright. That was a really good idea. It's going to throw my RCS off. Yes, but I'm not worried about the RCS at that point because we're just going to be leaving the thing as a satellite there. And if we need to redock, we can definitely get it done with the RCS. We'll just have to be a little bit more careful. The other thing that we could do, we could take this lander and we could take this thing, and we could park them together in another ship build, and we could put RCS units on the side of these tanks such that the entire amalgamation was balanced. I'll leave that as an exercise for the stream viewer. We won't do that now, but it would be possible to park this onto this, take it into another ship, a clean VAB basically, use RCS build aid to put RCS modules down on this part so that when this was docked with this, you had balanced RCS. If we were planning on flying around and doing a lot of stuff with that, we would definitely do that. But that's an excellent observation, thank you. What did I miss? I missed some stuff on the main ship. What was it? Ejection seats. Nice. Let's see. I'll come back to that in just a second. RCS on the big ship. Thank you, Hag. We do need to put some RCS on the big ship. And we will just go ahead and get like a couple of these sort of deals. And see, will they fit? Like, can I tuck them in here? Is that going to clip? I don't feel like that's clipping. I feel like that's okay. Peanut Gallery, are we good with that? Are we happy with the RCS being included like that? I think they're fine like that. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. A way to safely return to Kerbal, maybe add a couple ejection seats. Let's do this, Soul Wager. In a future episode, we're going to work on space planes, nose cones on fuel tanks. All right, Chainsaw, I'll buy that. SAS, we've got SAS on the main part. I just added the RCS. To answer Soul Wager's recommendation, we're going to do a future Kerbal Space Academy on space planes. And so what we'll do is we'll decrew this thing and deliver the science with a space plane. So we'll bring this thing back to Kerbal. We will put it in Kerbal orbit, a stable Kerbal orbit, and then we'll build and design a space plane to come up here and bring the 2 astronauts on home. I think that's going to be a good way to tie what we're doing here in with a future episode. RCS tanks, put goo canisters on. Wait, let me make sure that those are actually... Are they RCS tanks? RCS? Yes, they have RCS in them, so we're good. I think that we're going to be fine with that. I want to do this, though. I don't like unintended wibbly wobblies, so I'm going to take a strut, and I'm going to put it down like this. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to take a strut, and I'm going to put it down like this. Pretty close. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons away. And that's only 2 buttons away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons away, right? Like that is even. There we go. And again, I have that attached with 3 points. I've got 1 point for the little strut, and then I've got 2 struts on there to hold it. So all of our side-mounted things are 3-point struts, which is cool. Anything else? I totally forgot some stuff. I'm a little bit disappointed in the stream for not getting onto my case for not including power generation on the main ship. So let's take care of that right quick. Actually, does this look cool? Me. I don't know. That blocks the view. It's going to block the view. Let's not do that. Maybe put these little nose cones just for... I mean, that looks kind of cool, doesn't it? And how much delta V did that change? I don't know. Is that worth 7, 8 delta V? Those nose cones don't do anything. It's just for looks, really. Huh. Yeah, that is a big battery. But how much does it weigh? We're going to be transmitting some stuff home. 0.2. We'll keep that battery on there. We're not poor. We've got the extra time. A probe core on the main ship. It would be nice to put a probe core. Let's go ahead and include Hal, maybe. Where you at, Hal? There you go. That thing weighs a lot, doesn't it? Half ton. That's a lot. Let's see how that affects our delta V. 4937 versus 5,000. 4937. So that's 50, 60, 70 delta V. We could get away with using a much smaller probe core for the same thing. And I've done that in the past. How much does this weigh? 0.1? Yeah, we'll do the one. Oh, actually, here. Let me do my thing. with Procore. That's a cubic octo strut. Times 1, up symmetry. If you've watched my stream enough, you know that I like to do this, simply because the Stay Putnik does not get enough love. We're going to go ahead and say that that's cool. Yes, it does clip inside, but see, it's got a little interface inside where they can type on another from the inside. That's why it clips through the wall of the hitchhiker. Suspend your disbelief, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see here. What else? I was going to do this. ET phone home capabilities. There we go. Now, is putting that mast on the side going to make my craft a little bit unstable? Barely. The rest of the craft is massful enough that adding that Stay Putnik on the side with the antenna is not statistically significant to the craft. So I'm not really worried about how that's going to affect us. Not worth it. Yes, I definitely agree that HAL was not worth it. Anything else? We're just right at 5,000 delta V. Power generation. I always am going to put a RTG on here. The main craft always has an RTG in my book. And we're going to put it right here next to the... Where's the... there we go. Is that... Yeah, that's the other side. We'll put it right here next to the... Wait, why am I doing that? There we go. Right here next to the side of the hitchhiker for ease of service. Radiation's good for you. It'll help them kill any, I guess, cancer cells that they did. Wait, no, that's not right at all. Anyways, ease of service right there next to the door for the hitchhiker. Anything else? I'm not carrying a science lab with me. So we're only going to have the one experiment that we do from the surface of Duna. Science lab weighs 3.5. I mean, we could totally get rid of the... Anybody on that? Should I get rid of the cupola and instead include a science lab with a different sort of lander can? Because what is that? The science lab is 3.5. That's 4.5. And that's 2. That would still be more. That's 4. Yeah. Cupola for sweeping views of Mars, or a science lab so that we can clean the goo experiment and do multiple goos experiments. What do y'all think? Read all of your objectives. Hey, Danthus, check this out. Down here in the corner, well, I don't have any contracts right now, so it's not showing. Yes, there is a way you should be able to see this down here, and you would be able to click on it and do different things. Let's see here. There'll be a little thing down here that looks like a notebook or something, I think, and if you click on it, you can expand the contracts, and it works almost in every scene. I'll show you when we get to the flight scene. Science labs are only worth it if you are visiting like 5 biomes. All I'd be using it for is the guy. Yeah, the Science Junior, you're correct. How many biomes do I have? I have space around Ike, surface of Ike, space around Duna, surface of Duna, that's 4 biomes. In flight over Duna would be a 5th. What do y'all think? I'll let y'all decide. So, over in the stream, tell me, should I replace the cupola, which gives beautiful sweeping views of Duna, with a science lab that will allow us to clean our Science Junior experiment and get basically 4 biomes instead of just the 1. I think for now, if I don't get its comments in the next couple seconds, I think we'll just go ahead and go with the ship as designed. We've done the science farming, Kerbal Space Academies, where we farm science from different places, and we do know that if we put a science lab up here, I mean, we could get rid of the hitchhiker and put a science lab instead of the hitchhiker. What's the hitchhiker weigh? 2.5? What's the science lab weigh? 3.5? Yeah, we could put a science lab instead of a hitchhiker. That would be another thing that we could do, but I think for the purposes of this, we'll go with this. This mission's about getting to Duna. It's not about farming science on Duna. So I think I'll go ahead and make the call there. So we've got our 5,000 Delta V. Alright, save. Cupola is fine. Yeah, let's go ahead and stick with the cupola. Solar panels? Do we need some big solar panels on the ship? Let's see here, I don't think we need big solar panels on the ship. If we wanted to, we could put a couple solar panels. Maybe just one. I'm just going to put one like this for kind of emergency backup purposes, let's say. We don't really need to do this, but I'm just going to do it right quick. Really? I would really like it. Oh well, whatever. I guess I wouldn't really like it. I'll just do this. Call it a day. And I'm going to put one over here. This is just, you know, imagine, if you will, that the RTG has failed. At least we'll have some capability to deploy solar panels and call it a day. Anything else? What else did I miss? We've got control. We've got room for 2 Kerbals. We've got SAS. We've got battery storage. We've got RCS. We've got main propulsion. We've got fuel. We've got our lander that has everything on it. We've got fuel for the lander in mission mode. What else? We've got power generation. There's our Kerbal engineer. ET phone home. Backup power generation. Did I miss anything? Let me know if I missed anything on the main ship there. And I think while I'm waiting for some feedback, let me do a chat roll call. We got quite a few people watching. Cybertex here. What's up? Alive Mouse, welcome. Guys, if I read you earlier, I'm going to not read you again. Just people that are new here. Alive Mouse. Dark Devil, welcome. Ethan Pratt, Fixin' Golden? Something about Golden, yeah. Gene Kerman, hey Gene. I hope I won't be great on this. Green Ember, Bob still here. Kanan Officer Lax Score, Hag, also Lilu. Mobius Prolix, quite a few people. Royal Pains, Spammin' Bacon. That sounds delicious, actually. Terrandos Taser, Triangle. That's like Triangle Squared almost. Valkyria, and someone off the bottom of the list whose name I can't read. So if you're last on the list, I don't know what's going on, can't read your name. Anyways, thanks everybody for joining us for Kerbal Space Academy. I do appreciate everybody hanging out. And like I said, don't be shy. If you have questions, type them over in the chat. I'll answer them. If you think that my ship is dumb and it needs to be changed, type it. I'll either ban you from the channel or I'll make the change that you request. You'll just have to roll the dice. Chutes for the main craft. We won't need any chutes on the main craft. It's not designed to come back into the planet's atmosphere. Once it gets up, it's going to stay up. It can come back here for refitting to return to Kerbals, but it will not be expected to return. We'll do a future episode, Kerbal Space Academy Space Planes. We'll design a space plane to come up here and to retrieve these guys and their science. So hope that answers that question. RCS ports on the main... yeah, you're delicious, baby. 3 boxes, which I don't know what they are. Don't see any RCS ports. Yes. The main craft is not going to be expected to maneuver nor dock with anything else. So we're not going to put any RCS ports on here. It's kind of like the mothership, and all of the rendezvousing will be done, or actually all of the docking operations will be done with the lander itself. So hopefully that answers that question. That's why I don't have RCS on the main craft. We do like to reuse our stuff. So let's grab a Clampatron Senior here. Come on now. A Clampatron Senior. Put it on the bottom. That's going to allow us to make this thing part of a space station in the future or something like that. If we need to add something to it, if we need to add drop tanks or something like that, that's definitely something we could do. And we're sitting right at 4956 Delta V. Our design requirement was 3000 Delta V looking at the subway map, so I think we're good to go. Anything else? Nathan the Great, hi, you're new. Welcome to Kerbal Space Academy. Anything else? Yeah, I put a little science experiment on here. Everybody likes to know what the temperature is. We've got lights. Oops, we need a work area light. And we need a landing light. So let's put a couple lights on. And I think we can do it with the same thing. I'm going to put a light here, pointing down, with 2x symmetry. Wow, how tucked in is that? Interesting. That will function as both of our... There we go. Wow, that's tucked into... There must be the way the mesh goes at the top of the hitchhiker there. That's okay, I think that looks cool. So this will function as a work area light or a landing light for this to illuminate that side of the craft, and it'll function as a work area light over here where I'm going to put that science experiment. Would hope if I clicked on the science tab, wouldn't it? There you go. Then you can go outside and see what the temperature is while you check on the while you check on the RTG and get basked in the glow of the radiation. Anything else? What else did I miss? I gotta miss something else. Speak now or forever hold your heckling. Anyone? I'm not seeing anybody say anything in chat, so if I get out there and then all of a sudden we can't, I don't know, I can't make fun of what we would have forgotten, because if I think about it, then I wouldn't have forgotten about it. I would look at the craft to make sure I had it. How much do these weigh? 103? Yeah. I'll put those 2 antennas on there. That is our interplanetary Doppler navigation radar. Or something. I don't know. Snacks. Yes, that's why we have the hitchhiker. There's definitely multiple bins in here. There are multiple snack bins in the hitchhiker. Can I make a jet in a bit? Nathan the Great, we do different streams on different nights with Kerbal Space Academy. We'll definitely be doing a different stream on a different night. Maybe tomorrow night, when we make a space plane to come up here and rescue these guys after they return from their mission. So tonight we're doing interplanetary transfers. We've built the interplanetary craft and its lander. So I think we're good to go. Do I have a crew? That's a good point. Remember, we have to put the crew in last, or else it continually changes what the crew is. So I think we will definitely remember the crew. Remind me right before we launch this puppy about the crew thing. So, I need a kicker stage that's going to get us into the next phase. Remember, we brought up our subway map, and we said that to go from low Kerbal orbit all the way up to low Duna orbit is going to be 950 plus 110 plus 370. Hey, Nathan the Great, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. It's going to be 950 plus 110 plus 370. Just around 1,500 total to get to Duna. So we're going to do, we're way overbuilding this thing, but that's just fine. We're going to need 950 to get out of Kerbal Sphere of Influence. So let us see if we can't make a kicker stage to give us a much greater thrust to weight as we exit Kerbal. We want to do that because this 0.24 thrust to weight is okay for interplanetary maneuvers when we're out in the deep space, but when we're orbiting around Kerbal, 0.24 is going to make a very, very inaccurate burn. We don't want that. So let's give us something that gives us a lot more thrust to weight. 487 for 1.04 thrust to weight. Interesting. Which of these are my nukes? There's my nukes. There we go. Make sure that I'm in, yeah, there we go. I'm in vacuum mode. So that right there would definitely help us get well on our way to that 950 meter per second burn. If we put even more fuel, like that, that gives us 902. I like this, and here's why I like this. This is what we need to insert to orbit, right? What we're going to do is, again, looking at our delta V map, we need 950 at least to get out of Kerbal Sphere of Influence, roughly, plus or minus. That map is not exactly, it depends on how you burn it. Having 900 here, this will get us a very good 0.91 thrust to weight, well on our way out of Kerbal Sphere of Influence before this stage dies, and then we'll decouple and we'll use these engines to kick us the rest of the way out of the Sphere of Influence. I like that. Do I have a crew? Alright, that's the same question as before. So this is what we are going to use. Everybody follow that? We're going to insert this into low Kerbal orbit. Then when it's time to get on our way to Duna, we're going to use this to kick us out there. And then we're going to drop this and use this craft up here to continue on our way. If that doesn't make a lot of sense to everyone here, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and do my same very favorite thing of putting a slightly unbalanced Stay Putnik on here with a battery and a solar panel. That's just going to let us... We'll come back and recover this thing later or something. Solar panels is what I was looking for. I'm not going to break the bank. We're just going to put one here. Actually, we're just going to do 2x symmetry. Alright, so now this kicker stage will stay alive. We can recover it and use it again. Not really. But we can recover it. That is a little extraneous. Pre-lump height. It looks like a man-human almost. Oh yeah, you're right. He's got like... Give him 2 legs. 2 arms. Nuclear knuckles or whatever. But everybody follow along with that. That's our kicker stage. It has control so it won't become debris. It's got a little bit of battery and solar panels so that it can maintain itself. And this thing is going to be stuck in a big elliptical orbit. So in a future episode, maybe we can go out there and grab it, deorbit it, refuel it maybe? Maybe that's a good idea. Why do I have that off center? I'm not doing that right. I need to put it on center like this. On the dorsal side. And then I can put this directly on the dorsal side. And then I can 2x symmetry. Actually, we're not poor. 3x symmetry. Spared no expense. Out. So that makes that stage not become space junk. We don't want it to become space junk because it is going to be stuck in a big elliptical orbit around Kerbal. Pre-launch hype. Yes, board the hype train. There's our root node. Up. Now we need to get this thing into orbit. We're not going to make this mission too complex. I have an idea. Because what I was thinking was using this stage also as the orbital kicker stage, the orbital insertion stage, and then refueling this after we use it to insert ourselves into orbit. We could totally do that. We could fly this up there using this engine to get us into an orbit, and then send something up to refuel us using this docking port, and then continue on our merry to Duna. In the interest of time, we won't add that refueling mission in here. We're just going to say we need to deliver this guy to orbit full of fuel. So let's go that way. So, we need Moss stages. And now I'm going to go ahead and flip to atmospheric mode. So, big old decoupler. Es bueno. You go there. More fuel tanks. That is going to give us less than a 0.9, so we're going to need like a mainsail as the kicker. 500. That's not great. That needs more fuel. And this rocket is going to be freaking super tall. How can we do that? We'll just keep it simple. We'll just do it like that. That's 565 as the kicker stage. Let's see if we can't design around this. Now we need our main lifter stage, which is going to look a lot like this. And let's see where this gets us thrust-wise, delta V-wise. Wow, only 2,000. Not great, and this rocket is ridiculously tall. That kicker stage in there is making us really ridiculously tall. The fact that we have the orbital, or the interplanetary kicker stage and our orbital kicker stage. Plus it's only 1.55 on the launch pad. We don't like that. We're not putting that thing in space that way. What else? How can we do this better? We could do it this way. What's the weight of a mainsail? 6. What's the weight of a skipper? 3. Okay. An idea forms itself in my head. Where are you at now? I'm just trying to make this entire thing smaller. So let's see. It's a little ugly. Where's the skippers at? You like apples? What if that's an insertion stage? Let's see here. No, we don't want it like that. What we want to do is Separate that and start up those two engines. And then ditch those engines. Well, that doesn't make any sense. At least that makes us a little bit shorter. Yeah. We're definitely going to need a huge fairing up here at the top. Those look dumb. Whatever. Let's see, what is that? That's 562 at 1.36. That's 1753 at 1.55. Can we do it like this? Let us see here. Where are them tanks? Actually, where are these engines? These are not bad engines. And then we'll move this down a shade. Like that. And then we will, what are we doing? 138, that's just because of the way it's staged. You go down there. 2.49 on launch pad, that means we can carry a lot more fuel. I'm looking at this number right here, 2.49. We want that to be 1.7 when we launch, because 1.7 will be, is the amount of thrust to weight you want off the launch pad for a good flight, basically. So let's put more fuel on top of these. There we go, that's up to 3,000 delta V, we're getting better. What if we change the fueling? What does that say? 2.22. That's a lot. That's a lot. 3.2. Yeah, and then 1.55 for the second stage. Is that correct? Yeah, we just ditched the things off the side. So now we're up to 3.3, but we can carry more fuel. So let's give it even more fuel. 2.1. Wow, we can carry even more fuel, and we're up to 3.4. Let's do this. Let's get those big red tanks. Where you at, big red tanks? There we go. They clip, so we'll need to move it down a little bit, or just do this. Grabbing an extra tank, putting it in there, putting those on there like that. How's that? 189 on the launch pad. 3363 there. Let's have a look. Put our fuel lines back. Slow down just a bit. Yeah, I'm totally guest testing and revising here because we're building this live. I didn't build it in advance. 3730. 189 on the pad, which I like. More fuel. 185 on the pad. 3787. We could almost put drop tanks on there, like side drop tanks. 185, 141, that's a little low. I wonder. Those three engines. Let's see. Let's see if we can't do it with the drop tank. So I'm just putting those standoffs on the side. And I'm going to put these, that's how we do drop tanks in Kerbal Space Program, like that, with a fuel line to feed it. There we go, close enough. 4192, that gets us to orbit, but that's 157 on the pad. Always remember you can tune things. 39999. Hey, look at that. I think a little bit more. And I will take 1.69. That will get us to orbit right there. That is a good deal. The Kraken will be pleased. We shall see. We shall see. We fear not the Kraken. We go to space anyways. We are going to need to do some strutting and separatroning. So I'm going to go ahead and put this here. Up to the middle of the tank. Once more on the other side, again with 2x symmetry. Call it that to there. Pretty close, pretty close. Again, 3 points of contact. 2 up there, 1 right there. We like that. We need to do the same thing with our sides. And I fear that we will have issues with